if we're in the process of rewiring, what are some things we can do to take care of ourselves to help boost that?
Yeah. So, as I've explained it in the book, the brain is your hardware, your habits, behaviors, mental health is your software. And the brain health hardware component needs to be working optimally as well. So things like exercise, down to the neurobiology, means that you are actually increasing molecules such as BDNF, so brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is released when you're doing aerobic exercise. Now, BDNF is actually responsible for cell synaptic growth, and so that's creating of new synapses, cell integrity as well, so it maintains the survival of these synapses as well, and it can actually alleviate mood as well. So there are implications of BDNF in Alzheimer's disease and major depressive disorder. So that is why exercise can help boost mood. We've seen that link through the BDNF molecule. Not just that, but it helps to solidify those rewiring pathways. So it's actually making the protein that is required for rewiring more abundant and available. And then the other thing is, exercise increases mitochondria. Mitochondria, I don't know if you did biology, and anyone that's listening to this will probably giggle because it's like, I can't remember the rhyme, but it's something like roses are red, violets are blue. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell or something like that. I completely butchered the joke, but it's something like that. Mitochondria are fundamentally responsible for energy production, ATP, which is required for the transmitting of information between neurons and other processes in the body. When we exercise, we have something called mitochondrial biogenesis, which basically increases the number of mitochondria within each cell. The more mitochondria you have, the more energy you have, the more cellular processing you have, the more metabolic function you have, the better you are at communicating information in the brain and body.
So I just need to hear this part every time I'm not going to work out. I'm like, okay, it's all for my brain. I'm manifesting through exercise. It's fine.
Exactly. Because people don't make that link. They know that exercise is good for them, but it's actually changing the gray matter volume in your brain for you to have more cognitive integrity. And we've seen it in older individuals. We've actually looked at post-mortem brains of individuals who remained active throughout life, and they have more presynaptic proteins in the synapses, which have been correlated to higher synaptic integrity, which means better brain health. If you think a brain that's more dense, you're going to automatically think, well, that brain must be functioning better than a brain that hasn't got enough proteins and is less integral.
And what impact does sleep have when we are creating new neural pathways? I imagine our bodies are probably very exhausted when they're hard at work creating these new pathways in there.
So, as Matthew Walker, the writer of Why We Sleep, said, sleep is your number one optimization tool. It's fundamentally the most important building block of everything, of your physiology, of your brain health, of your mental health. And that is due to a few reasons. So we have something called the lymphatic system, which is activated during deep sleep. And what that does is that it releases cerebral spinal fluid, which is fluid in your brain and spinal cord, into the brain, and it washes away any toxins, any buildup, predominantly things like tau buildup. Now, tau buildup, TAU, has been correlated to Alzheimer's disease. So there's a tau buildup in pathophysiology of Alzheimer's. This lymphatic system does is it helps remove all of that. Now, a couple of other things happen. So we release growth hormone during deep sleep, which is responsible for the repairing of cells. So making sure that they are replicating in the body and proliferating effectively and not doing that with problems, because sometimes they can misfold, which means that then you have problems later down in life or disease, basically the occurrence of disease. Growth hormone is also responsible for making sure that the glial cells in your brain, so just to backtrack a little bit, the neurons in our brain that communicate information, once they die off, we can't regenerate them. So when we talk about neuroplasticity, we're talking about the synapses that can create new pathways, but the actual neuron, the cell body, if it dies, it's dead. You can't regenerate that. And that's what's so damaging and detrimental to our brain health, is that if you have neurodegenerative disorders, you can alleviate symptoms through synaptogenesis, but you can't replace them. And that's why it's so important to look after your brain, because we can't go back. Neurodegenerative diseases don't start in your 60s, 70s. They start with the habits that you've created in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s even. So sleep can help basically the growth hormone make sure that the other cells, the supporting cells that are called glial cells and astrocytes, they can regenerate. They make sure that the brain is functioning correctly, and they are the ones that are repaired through sleep as well. Then we also release testosterone. Now, both men and women need testosterone for cognitive function, for physical function, and we release the majority of it during sleep. If you're losing out on a REM cycle, because it's released during REM, one REM cycle means that if you're sleeping 6 hours, you're basically losing one REM cycle, which is correlated to between 10 to 15% testosterone loss in the day. So sleep, I can't stress enough how important it is to sleep. And I know that people have things going on. I know that people have children and there's stuff in our lives, but if you can in any way sort of refine that as much as possible, then please do. And the first way to do that is to really try and just not even try. I'm like actually telling you have to get rid of your phone late at night, because that artificial light is blocking your natural circadian rhythm from telling your brain and body that it's time to shut down and go to sleep. As an evolutionary species, the sun would have gone down at 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, in the summer, maybe a little bit later, but then your brain would have started shutting down so early on. And let's say the sun sets at 7 o'clock. If you're on your phone until 10 o'clock, that's an extra 3 hours before the processes that start to tell you to go to bed start kicking in.
Wow.
There's a 3-hour delay,
Yeah, that's a huge one. I also do like red light glasses, and we have red light bulbs in our home that we try to turn on at night, have everything a lot dimmer, because that can just like spike it all. And if I have to be on the computer, I have red light glasses, and I have all my flux and all that screen stuff on too before bed. But it's really powerful. I'm thinking too I have a lot of friends who recently have had kids, and their sleep cycle for the kids is they'll wake up at 4 a.m. and they're only sleeping 4 hours. And I went through a miniature version with our puppy where he was, only sleeping about 5 hours a night, and we were fully awake every time that he woke us up. What can naps do during the day? Like, is that helpful for someone who's like, I literally only have a 5-hour window before I have to be up? If they go and take a nap later in the day, will that be supportive to them?
Absolutely. So this is what my research was in. I was basically looking at how we allocate cognitive energy resources to different tasks. So I was looking at social media versus something like meditation. I didn't look at naps, but basically people will go on a lunch break and have this perceived idea that social media is giving them a break from work, but it's still pulling on energy resources. It's still taking attentional networks, and it's causing something called vigilance decrement, which is your ability to hold attention. And so things like mindfulness meditation, and I would imagine that a nap even more, can actually replenish those cognitive resources. So I looked at decision making and I looked at attention, and in both conditions, doing a mindfulness meditation actually helped replenish energy resources. Something like a nap will do the same, absolutely. So taking regular, I call them strategic breaks throughout the day, 10 to 20 minutes, where you can actually just allow your brain to recover and shut off from the outside world, can be hugely beneficial.
So powerful. I've been adding at least 2 breaks into my schedule, and I have an hour blocked for them. And I'm like, okay, no phone. This is a restorative break. We either go out in nature, sit and journal, lay on the penf mat, like whatever you got to do, like let's just keep it very relaxed. And it makes a huge, huge difference.